Welcome to Crumbs of Truth. And with a lot of people talking about angels recently, with the resurgence of biblically accurate angels, and also the idea of Nephilim and giants, and this resurgence of mythology, we thought it'd be interesting to tackle angels and the Nephilim from a distinctly Christian perspective, since you don't often see that.
Yeah, there's a big growing want for information on these different types of angels and things that have happened in the Bible. I think a lot of people don't understand how supernatural the Bible really is. It's been, if you will, dumbed down to just being stories, and stories that of themselves aren't that spectacular. But when you really read them and delve into it, you find out that there is a lot of supernatural that's taking place continually through the entire Bible.
Yeah, I think there's a general misconception about the Bible itself and thinking that it is for PG audiences and that it is all people standing like this and I'm holier than you, I'm better than you, and there's no sin nature mentioned or anything, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting as you dig into the Bible, you find out the Bible really has a lot of answers and tells you a lot of stuff. Now, one of the things I like to do is I enjoy studying a lot of this type of material with the Nephilim and who are the sons of God and angels in general, but we need to make sure that we don't distract from the real message of the Bible. The real message of the Bible has nothing to do with those. It has to do with Jesus Christ. So that's something that I want to make sure we focus on this show. We'll talk about that, but we also need to talk about what the real reason for the Bible is.
Yeah. So just to get into the topic, really, we've both thrown around the word Nephilim. What
Yes.
exactly is that word?
Well, it's a word that is used in the Bible, and it's used in Genesis chapter 6 and several other places. The King James would translate it as giant. So whenever you see giant in the Bible, that's actually the word Nephilim. The Nephilim would be in Genesis 6, and we'll go ahead and read that. Genesis 6, 1 through 3. And here we go. And this is, of course, in the King James. And it came to pass, when the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw that daughters of men, they were fair, and they took them wives all whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for he is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Then there were giants, or Nephilim, in the earth in those days, and also after, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bore children unto them. The same became mighty men, who were of old, men of renown. So I see some people that would think the Nephilim are the sons of God, and other people have said the Nephilim are the offspring of the sons of God. And I believe that they're the offspring of the sons of God.
So, just to further define this, what would you say the sons of God are?
That is a fantastic study, and that's something that I hope we can get into. There's been three dominating ideas about who the sons of God were. And I'm going to just touch on each one just briefly and kind of explain the thought process behind each one a little bit. And then I want to kind of look at the word sons of God and see what other titles we see in the Bible that God has assigned to different people, entities, whatever, and see how they line up. The first one is, and the one that most, I would say, very conservative type of Christian teachers would believe, is that the sons of God was the godly line of Seth. So you remember back after the Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, they had children, and their first children were Cain and Abel. Ironically, I think that Cain and Abel were twins. It says that Adam knew his wife, and she bore Cain, and she bore Abel. It doesn't say that he knew his wife again, so it was a one-time thing and got two children. And we know that twins is a heredity thing, so the first people had twins, which makes other people able to have twins. But anyway, the first thought was, well, Cain slew Abel. And then it says in the Bible in chapter 5 that God gave another man to replace Abel. He gave Seth. And so Cain was the outcast, the evil one, and Seth was the good one, the one that the line of Jesus Christ would come through Seth. And so they said, well, what this is the godly line of Seth went out and started to intermarry with the evil line of Cain. So that's the first one. That's the one that most of your very conservative people would go with. The second one is that the sons of God were angels who, when Satan rebelled, when Lucifer rebelled, he took a third of the angels with him. And now we call those angels demons. They're actually angels. Lucifer is still an angel by definition. And anytime you see the word sons of God in the Bible, it describes something of this nature. And I want to get into that here a little bit more in just a minute. But so the thought is that these angels came down and saw women and took them as wives and then had offspring that were half angel and half human. And there's a lot of things we will get into. It'll be several programs down the road, I'm sure, about how this could even be possible, because people will say, well, angels are spirits, how could they, or angels are this, how could they procreate with men, and stuff like that. And we'll go through that kind of a study on that, each little group. The third one is that, yes, indeed, these angels came down, and these angels, their thought is these angels couldn't come unto women and have offspring, so what they did is they possessed men. And through these possessed men, women gave birth to giants. And you say, well, that's a possibility. You think about some of the other possessions we see in the Bible, like the demoniac in Mark. And Jesus and his disciples get off the boat, and there's this guy, and he's tearing chains into bits, it says. Not just escaping, pulling his hand out of chains. He's actually breaking them into pieces. Well, a man couldn't do that. But a possessed man apparently has the strength to do that. Now, the next question is does he have the strength to do it, or does the demons make him not feel pain to where he uses all of his strength no matter the consequence? That's something we don't know, but we can see that demons can change physiology. I think one of the other ones we talked about was the girl who's able to tell the future because of this possession by a demon. So those are the three major thoughts about what this passage is talking about. And then, of course, their offspring we read about all the way through the Old Testament. There's many times that the children of Israel fight these people.
So I think this all kind of winds back to that initial question, which is, how do you define the sons of God?
I think that's a true statement. Depending on who the sons of God are, depends on what happens in the story. If we can go back and we can say, oh, the sons of God is this group of beings, then I know that this means that. If we can find a way to make them the line of Seth, then we can say, yes, this is the line of Seth. If we can make this to be an angel, then we can say this is an angelic beings. If this is a way we can find a way to make it a possession, then we can say it's a possession. So I think defining terms is a very, very important thing to do in the Bible. Let's find out what these terms mean.
So there's always like a pattern in the Bible, and it's constantly son of blank, and it's constant, and it's a title that is used a lot. So what would that even really mean?
That's right. Jesus had several titles when he was here on earth, and one of his favorite one was Son of Man. Mm-hmm. And there's Son of God, and there's sons of God. And I think those are the three main ones that we want to look at, because that kind of delves into what we're looking at. It's the right flavor to be in. So I think we need to look at these three different entities: Son of Man, sons of God, and Son of God. So if we turn back into the very first book of the Bible, to Genesis, and we're going to look at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26, and it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creepy thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female created them. So why does it say first, man was created in the image of God, and then it says that man is both male and female? Well, because Eve was taken out of Adam. So Eve is of Adam. They are a one entity. In fact, it says in the Bible that when you marry, you're supposed to become as one flesh with your spouse. So that's it kicked back to that. Now, I find it interesting that if you turn over to Genesis 5, now remember, God made Adam in his image, male and female, Adam and Eve, and then they were kicked out of the garden for disobeying, for sinning. And Cain and Abel came along, and Abel was murdered. So here it says, here's the genealogy of Adam and Eve, and it says, "This is the book of the generations of Adam. In that day that God created man, in the likeness of God he made him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. And in that day when they said they were created, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And in the days of Adam, after he had begotten Seth, were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters." So I find this interesting here. We have the very first mention of a son, and in this passage, and the son is Seth. Now, is Seth made in God's likeness and in God's image?
Well, I'd obviously say yes.
I would say vaguely, because it says in this verse, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness. So Seth is in the likeness of Adam. It says, after his image, and called his name Seth. So his son is in his likeness, in his image of Adam, who is in the image of God. So, yes, Seth is in the image of God, but not directly. He's actually a son of man. Adam was a son of God because God created him directly. And there's actually a verse that backs that up for us. One of the things that I really love to do is study genealogy, and people laugh at me and think that, well, that stuff's so boring, you can't get anything out of it. I'm going to tell you, there is so much in genealogy that we miss by not reading it and not paying attention to it, and even I do. But we have two genealogies in the New Testament. The first one's in Matthew, and that genealogy is for Joseph, Jesus' adoptive father, because remember, Jesus has no earthly father. He was a virgin born. God, the Holy Spirit, came upon Mary and she conceived. And that doesn't mean that he went in like Zeus. It means that he just overshadowed her and put the baby in her. But in Luke chapter 3, it gives Mary's genealogy. And what's fascinating about this is The genealogies from Adam all the way to King David are identical, because Jesus has to come through the seed of David. He's got to be of the lineage of David. And then it splits, and Joseph's goes through Solomon. Well, Solomon has a big problem on his genealogy. There's a person in there by the name of Jeconiah. And God curses Jeconiah because Jeconiah did such evil in his sight and said, your seed will never sit on the throne of David again. And so all of a sudden, Joseph's side is while it is the line of the king, it's not supposed to be on the throne anymore. But yet, Mary's side goes through Nathan. And so she's a son of David through Nathan, and it goes around Jeconiah, and that's the blood right of Jesus through Mary. In fact, that blood right goes through the priestly line of Elizabeth and Zacharias. And so Jesus on Mary's side is the bloodline priest, and on Joseph's side, the adoptive king, so Jesus is the king priest. It's fascinating how that works out. But what's even more fascinating is when you get down to Luke chapter 3, and I'm just going to read the last two verses, 37 and 38. Who was the son of Methuselah? Who was the son of Enoch? Now this Enoch, and we're going to talk about this, people have attributed a book to him and said that this is the book of Enoch. And they will use this to help describe this too. And we're going to get into the book of Enoch eventually and talk about it and what our thoughts are on that. Who was the son of Jared? Who was the son of Matthiel? And who was the son of Canaan? Who was the son of Enos? Who was the son of Seth? Who was the son of Adam? And Adam, who was the what? Son of God. So Adam was directly created by God, and he is made in the likeness and image. He is a son of God. And you say, well, how can that be? How can he be a son of God? Who's the other person we hear being the son of God? It would be Jesus, wouldn't it? Jesus was the son of God. And here we have Adam as a son of God. Something that I find interesting that a lot of some of the newer translations are doing is they're changing a lot of wording in the Bible. And they would come over to John 3:16 and they will change this, John 3:16, and they'll say, for God sent his son, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. Now wait a minute. The Bible just said that Adam was his son. Mm-hmm. Did he give Adam?
No.
No. But he gave Jesus, but Jesus is not his one and only son, is he? Mm-mm. But if you read the manuscript says he gave his only begotten son. In other words, his son that was born of a woman was given. Not Adam. Adam's the first son. Jesus is the second son, born of a woman, but had no earthly father. His father was God in heaven. So we're already defining some stuff here. All men, other than Adam, are sons of men. So I'm a son of man. You're a son of man, even though you're female. Be son of humankind.
Yeah.
So we see that there was two son of gods. But the scripture that we're looking at says sons of God. That's completely different. That's a different title than son of God. But it still implies that direct creation. Something God created directly. So, yeah, you could say that God created me, God created you. That's true, but he did it through a natural process. You were conceived of the natural way. You were born the natural way. But these are people or beings that he actually formed as they are now. So one would be Adam and Eve, but they're considered one. The other one is angels. Angels are sons of God. And you say, well, where do you get that from? If we turn, and I just did this real quick, if you get on your Bible app in the King James, or even I think in the New King James, some a good reputable translation, and you search quotation sons of God quotation, you will come up with all the verses where sons of God is used. And you'll notice that Genesis 6:2, Genesis 6:4 uses it. And those are the verses we're talking about, right? But you also notice that Job uses it. It says, now there was a day when the sons of God came and presented themselves to the Lord, and Satan came also among them. So that tells you that Satan was a sons of God. Not a son of God, but sons of God, right? So that tells you that Satan had to have been an angel. Now, there's been some contesting of whether or not Lucifer is Satan, because it doesn't say directly in the Bible Lucifer is Satan. But we know that Satan is an angel, or was an angel, and now we would call him a demon. In chapter 2, verse 1, it says, again in the day when the sons of God came to present themselves. So here we are again. The angels are going and presenting themselves before God. And then the last one that's used in the Old Testament is Job 38:7. And this is interesting. It says, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So this is talking about creation and how they were ecstatic over creation. And so these sons of God are direct beings crafted by God. They have to be angels. They can't be men, because men are sons of men. These are sons of God directly created. And you say, well, Dave, I see, if I keep looking through this list of things I found, there's a bunch of those listed in the New Testament. John 1:12 is the first place it's listed, and here's what it says. But as many as received him, he gave them power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. Romans 8:14, for as many are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. For the 8:19, for the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. That ye be blameless, this is Philippians 2:15, and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke. When you are saved, when an unbeliever, a son of man, comes to God in repentance and puts his faith in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross, he is reborn as a son of God. Sons of God. Not a son of God, but sons of God. And that tells you that a Christian is a direct creation of God. So when you're saved, you go from being a son of man to being a sons of God. You transfer over to that. The other thing that I like about that is son shows inheritance. It says that because we're sons of God, we have an inheritance. Who were the ones that got the inheritance in those days?
It was the son.
It was the son. So even the women are considered in the sons of God because they get the inheritance too. So we can see through the Bible, anybody born of man is a son of man. Anybody created by God or born of God is a sons of God. And us, people, can become the sons of God through salvation and faith in Jesus Christ. So I think that what we do is we're looking at who are the sons of God throughout the entire Bible, and that is a created entity by God directly. So I think that just looking at that, at top value and going through there, the sons of God in Genesis 6 have to be angels.
So with that now defined, I suppose that opens up the way for the next few videos where we want to talk about the sons of God being angels who came down and actually did the act versus angels who possessed men to do the act.
Because I think there's a real distinction to have to see. You know, there's a lot of things out there. People will say, well, you know, angels don't marry, and the other one is if somebody's possessed by something, how much can they really do? How much can they really change? But I think what this does is this rules out the idea that the godly line of Seth. And one of the other things that I wanted to add on about the godly line of Seth that I find a neat thought too is if Seth's line was so godly, why did they all die in the flood? Because there was only one family that was saved. Yeah. It was Noah and his family. What happened to Noah's brothers? You think Noah was an only child? And I also find it interesting that in the Bible where it talks about Noah and his genealogy, it says that he was perfect in his genealogy. And if you look back to Genesis 6, 1 through 4, there was a mixing of genealogy. So Noah may have been someone that didn't have any mixture in his genealogy, in his genes.
I also find it interesting. He brought his wife, so she also had to have been.
Yep.
And then he had 3 sons, and those 3 sons brought their wives. So their wives also had to have been. Right?
Absolutely. And, you know, Noah was a preacher of righteousness. So that means that his sons agreed with him and helped him preach, and his sons' wives were of the same thought. They were all together for the Lord and building this ark.
Do you think he had more than 3 sons that didn't come with him?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would say I don't know that the Bible really tells us. I want to say he possibly could have had more just because of the amount of time that people lived. But I think that it was such an evil day. You know, one of the things that I've noticed is, and I haven't figured out where this really comes from, but a lot of people will say, well, I don't know if I want to bring a child into this world. It's so bad. You know, did Noah do the same thing and only had three children? Or, you know, God came to him when he was around 400, I think. And a lot of people didn't start having children until they were over 100. So maybe he knew God was going to do this. And so he reserved himself, or he only had a few sons and then decided I better hold off. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, hey, we can always come back with that.
Yeah, we can do some research and see if we can figure that out. And I don't know if it's knowable, but we can find out.
That would be a good place to start part 2. So that would be a good place for you to come back to when we do that part 2, covering the sons of God, whether it's possession or the angels actually, or the demons, I suppose, actually doing the act.